My CEO wife, Victoria, sat behind her mahogany desk, her fingers laced together like she was about to deliver a eulogy. She didn't look at me like a wife. She looked at me like a problem that needed solving. "Jack, I'm letting you go," she said. Her voice was flat, no emotion, just business. "HR will have your severance paperwork by noon. Security will escort you to collect your things." I nodded. I didn't blink. I'd been waiting for this moment for 14 months. 14 months. That's how long it took to confirm what my gut already knew. I remembered the day Tom Ruddy slid that first manila envelope across the sticky diner table. He didn't smile. He just said, "You sure you want to see?" I opened it. Photos spilled out. Victoria at the Ritz-Carlton. Victoria laughing at something Derek said. Victoria with her hand on his arm in a way that didn't look like a business meeting. I looked at every single one. I studied them like evidence in a murder trial because in a way it was the marriage didn't die in that diner. It died over months of late nights and cold shoulders. But that envelope was when I stopped being a husband and started being an executioner. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I put the photos back in the envelope, paid the diner check, walked to my car and called Frank. "I need a plan. A real one. Not divorce. Something bigger." "How much bigger?" "Company bigger." Frank was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he said, "I'll start digging from that night." I stopped sleeping in the same bed as Victoria. She didn't notice. She was already sleeping somewhere else. I moved into the guest room. I told her I'd been having back problems. She didn't ask follow-up questions. She didn't care enough to ask. I stopped arguing. I stopped trying. I became a ghost in my own house. And she loved it. She loved that I'd finally stopped being difficult. Every night I sat in the dark and I planned. I read corporate law. I studied the company charter until I had it memorized. I learned everything I could about Richard Sterling. I built a war room in my head. And every morning I put on my suit, went to the office, smiled at my wife and waited for the right moment. 14 months of that. 14 months of smiling while I sharpened the knife. "Your snort's not upset?" she asked, her eyebrow arching. I shook my head. "No." She leaned back in her chair. The leather creaked. "Good. Then you understand it's nothing personal. Morrison Corp needs sharp leadership right now. Having my husband on the payroll creates optics." "You mean it embarrasses you?" I said. Her jaw tightened. "I mean the board questions my judgment when I keep family in positions they haven't earned." "And Derek?" I asked the board question. "Derek?" Victoria's eyes went cold. Derek Vance was her COO. He was also the man she'd been sleeping with for the last 8 months. I knew. I'd known. I'd hired a private investigator on month 2. I had photos, hotel receipts, text transcripts. I kept them in a safe deposit box, 3 banks away. "Derek is qualified," she said. "Right?" She stood up, brushed a piece of lint off her blazer. "I expect this to be civil. Jack, no scenes, no drama. You'll sign the non-disclosure agreement. You'll get 6 months of severance. You'll move on." I stood up, too. I was taller than her. I always had been. I already moved on. "Victoria." She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I walked to the door. I put my hand on the handle. Then I turned around. "You asked what I've been doing since. You fired me. I've been busy." "Busy doing what?" I smiled. "Ask the chairman tomorrow." Her face went pale. "Then read." "What chairman? What are you talking about?" I opened the door. Derek Vance was standing in the hallway, coffee cup in hand, smirking at me like he'd already won. He was 6 years younger than me. Sharper jaw, sharper suits, sharper everything. He thought, "Leaving so soon?" "Jack," he said. He took a slow sip of his coffee. "Don't let the door hit you on the way out." I walked past him. I didn't say a word, but I heard Victoria behind me. "Jack." "What chairman?" "Jack." I kept walking. The elevator doors closed. I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message to my lawyer. "Frank Castellano. It's done. Tomorrow at 9:00. He replied in 3 seconds. "Everything's ready. The board doesn't suspect a thing." Richard confirmed. "All shares transferred at 8:00 a.m. You're good." I stepped out of the Morrison Corp building, looked up at the glass tower I'd helped build over 6 years of marriage. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just the cold satisfaction of a plan clicking into place. I'd been fired from my own wife's company. She'd handed me to her lover on a silver platter. She thought she was cutting dead weight. She had no idea what she'd done. I got in my car. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel, breathing slow and steady. The parking garage smelled like concrete and exhaust. I called Frank. She fired me, I said. When 20 minutes ago, she said. Security would escort me out. Derek was already in the hallway. He was smirking. Good, that's good. That was the last piece. It feels weird having it finally happen. I've been waiting so long. Of course it does. But you're in control now. Not her. Not him. You. Everything else is just execution. I started the engine. See you at 8:30 tomorrow. See you then, Chairman. I hung up. I drove to my new apartment. The one Victoria didn't know about. The one I'd leased 3 months ago under a holding company name. I'd been careful. I'd been meticulous. I covered every track. The apartment was small. A one-bedroom on the 4th floor of a building that had seen better days. The paint was peeling in the bathroom. The radiator clanked when it came on. I didn't care. It wasn't permanent. It was a base of operations. I hung up my suit. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and went through the plan one more time. Step 1. Victoria fires me. Done. Step 2. I reveal the share. Transfer at the board meeting tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. Step 3. I present evidence of Derek's embezzlement. Same meeting. Step 4. I call for a vote to remove Victoria. Force the board's hand. Step 5. Victoria and Derek are escorted out. Done. Step 6. Forensic audit reveals full extent of the fraud. FBI involvement. Step 7. Derek goes to prison. Victoria loses everything. Step 8. I rebuild the company. I move on. I'd run through this plan 100 times in my head. I'd rehearse the words I would say, the documents I would present, the order of operations, every detail. But knowing it and living it were different things. And tomorrow I would live it. Victoria and I met 8 years ago at a tech conference in San Francisco. I was presenting a supply chain optimization model I'd built from scratch. She was in the audience 3 rows back wearing a red blazer that stood out against the sea of navy suits. She came up to me after the talk and said, "That was the most interesting thing I've heard all week." She was beautiful, confident, the kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it before she'd said a word. We had dinner that night, then breakfast the next morning. Then I led my flight home and stayed 3 more days. We were married 18 months later. Her father, Thomas Morrison, shook my hand at the wedding and said, "Take care of my girl." He was a big man, barrel chest, calloused hands. He'd built Morrison Corporation from a single warehouse in Akron to a manufacturing company with 400 employees and 12 facilities across 5 states. He was old school, handshake deals, loyalty, hard work. I respected him more than almost anyone I'd ever met. I promised him I'd take care of her. I kept that promise for a long time. When Thomas retired, he handed the keys to Victoria. She was his only child. He trusted her completely. At the retirement party, he pulled me aside. "You keep her straight, Jack. She's smart, but she's impulsive. She needs someone who will tell her when she's wrong." "I'll always tell her the truth," I said. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Good man. That's all I ask." I took a backseat role. In the company, I handled operations, supply chain, logistics, the invisible work, the work that kept the lights on. Victoria ran the show. She was CEO. She was the face. She was the one who got the credit and the blame. I was fine with that. I didn't need the spotlight. I needed the company to succeed. I needed my wife to be happy for the first 4 years. She was then Derek Vance showed up. He was a management consultant brought in to evaluate operational efficiency. That's what the engagement letter said. I met him in my office, shook his hand, gave him a tour of the facility. He was smooth, too smooth. He asked the right questions, smiled the right smiles, said all the right things. His handshake was too firm. His eye contact was too steady. Everything about him felt rehearsed. I didn't trust him from day one. I told Victoria, "Something's off about this guy." She laughed. You're paranoid. He's from Mackenzie. He's brilliant. We're lucky to have him. He's a salesman. I said. He's selling something. He's a consultant. She said. And we need his expertise. Our margins are shrinking. Our supply chain is outdated. He's going to help us fix it. I let it go. I shouldn't have. Within a month, Derek had reshuffled the entire operations department. He fired my warehouse manager, a man named Pete, who'd been with the company 22 years. Pete had 3 kids and a mortgage. Derek called it efficiency optimization. I called it what it was. Power move. I went to Victoria. Pete was loyal. He knew the inventory system better than anyone. We just trained him for 6 months on the new software. Now we have to start over. Derek says his numbers were below benchmark. She said without looking up from her phone whose benchmark the benchmarks Derek brought with him from Mackenzie. They don't apply to a manufacturing company in the Midwest. Jack, I hired Derek to modernize this company. Let him do his job. And my job, my opinion, does it count for anything? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were cold. Counts. But I'm the CEO and I made a decision. Pete was gone by Friday. I gave him a personal severance out of my own salary. Victoria never knew. Then came the consultants. Derek brought in 5 of them. Each one billed $2,000 a day. They sat in conference rooms and made PowerPoints. They didn't know the first thing about supply chain. They didn't know our suppliers, our customers, our limitations. But they had frameworks. They had buzzwords. They had Derek's ear. I watched our margins shrink. I watched our best people leave. I watched Derek spin every failure as short-term pain for long-term gain. And Victoria bought every word. I spoke up once more. Just once at a quarterly review. I showed the numbers. I showed how Derek's efficiency had actually cost us 12% in productivity. I had data. I had charts. I had receipts. Derek sat there with a smug smile. When I finished, he said, Jack's numbers are technically correct, but they don't account for the transformation premium. We're building for the future, not optimizing for the past. Victoria nodded. Derek's right. We need to think bigger. That's when I knew it wasn't just about the affair. She'd chosen him over me professionally. 2. She'd chosen his lies over my truth. She'd chosen a thief over her husband. I stopped speaking up after that. I went silent. I went invisible. I became exactly what they wanted me to be and I started planning. The first sign was the late nights. Derek was suddenly at the office until 10:11 p.m. working on the restructuring plan. Victoria said. I called the office one night at 9:30. Victoria's assistant answered. Ms. Morrison is in a meeting with Mr. Vance. She asked not to be disturbed. Is the meeting in her office? No, sir. They're in the conference room alone. A pause. Yes, sir. I hung up. I told myself it was innocent. Business meetings. Late hours happened. I was being paranoid. The second sign was the distance. Victoria stopped coming home for dinner. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped touching me. We shared a bed, but we didn't share anything else. I'd reach for her in the dark and she'd turn away. I'm tired, Jack. Long day. You're always tired because I'm running a company. It's not easy. Then let me help more. Let me take some of the load. I don't need your help. I need you to trust me. The third sign was the money. Frank called me 14 months ago. I've been going through the company's financials. There's something you need to see. I was in my office at Morrison Corporation. When he called, I closed the door. What is it? There are payments going to a consulting firm called Mercury Group. About $340,000 over the last 6 months. The invoices are signed by your wife, but the beneficiary account is tied to Derek Vance. I sat down hard. My office chair rolled backward and hit the wall. You're sure? I'm sure. I've got the paper trail. It's not pretty. It's not a mistake. Jack, this is fraud. Does Victoria know? I don't know, but the signatures are hers. Either she knows or she's not paying attention. Neither option is good. Don't say anything to anyone. I won't, but you need to make a decision, Jack, and you need to make it soon. I hired the private investigator the next day. His name was Tom Ruddy, former FBI wore cheap suits and drove a beat-up Ford that smelled like coffee and stale cigarettes. He was the best money could buy. I met Tom at a diner on the south side of town. No one we knew would be there. I slid a folder across the sticky tabletop. Victoria Morrison, CEO of Morrison Corporation. Derek Vance. Cool. I need everything. Where they go, who they meet, what they do. Tom opened the folder, looked at the photos I'd printed off the company website, closed it. This is a cheating case. Start with cheating. See where it goes. You think there's more and know there's more. He nodded. Give me 3 weeks. You'll have answers. Tom delivered the first batch of evidence 3 weeks later. On the dot photos. Lots of them. Victoria and Derek at the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago. Victoria and Derek having dinner at a private French restaurant. Victoria and Derek walking into an apartment building in the financial district at 11:47 p.m. The timestamp was clear on every photo. I looked at the photos for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I just looked at them, committing every detail to memory. The way she smiled at him. The way he touched her arm. The way they walked close together like they belonged to each other. I put the photos in a folder. I called Frank. How do you want to handle this? Frank asked. I want to destroy them. I said, legally, ethically, every way that matters. Frank paused. I heard him breathing on the other end of the line. That's going to take time. I have time. I'm going to need to dig deeper, find more leverage, and we're going to need a bigger play than just a divorce. Then find it. Frank found it. 2 weeks later, he came to my apartment, unrolled a set of documents across my kitchen table, and pointed to a paragraph in the company charter. There's a clause in here. If the CEO commits gross misconduct or if the company's financial stability is threatened by executive malfeasance, the board can be restructured, and the largest shareholder, a private equity group called Oakwood Partners, holds the swing vote. What's Oakwood's interest in this? They own 23% of Morrison Corporation. They got it when Thomas Morrison needed a cash infusion 6 years ago. They've been quiet investors, but they have a chairman who's very hands-on when he needs to be. Who's the chairman? Richard Sterling, 72 years old, built a $2 billion portfolio from nothing. He's retired now, but he still makes decisions. He's ruthless and he's looking for a new partner. How do you know he'll work with me? I don't, but I know he doesn't like Derek Vance. Sterling's team flagged the Mercury Group payments 2 months ago. They've been watching. They know something's wrong. Set up the meeting. Frank set it up. 10 months ago, I sat across from Richard Sterling in a private dining room at the Union League Club. The walls were paneled in dark wood. The table was set with white linen and heavy silverware. Richard was already there when I arrived, drinking scotch from a crystal glass. He didn't stand up. Jack Morrison, he said, I've heard about you. I hope it was good. I heard your wife is sleeping with her COO and you're looking for a way to take her company from her. I sat down across from him. That's one way to put it. What's the other way? I'm looking for a way to save a company from a woman who's destroying it and a man who's stealing from it. The fact that she's my wife is incidental. Richard laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound. I like you, Jack. You don't know, sir. I don't. Don't call me sir. I'm not your father. Tell me your plan. I laid it out. The company's valuation. The damage Derek had done. The opportunity for a turnaround. The structure of the deal. I talked for 45 minutes without notes. Richard asked questions. Hard ones. I answered them all. Why should I trust you? He asked. You're a guy whose wife is cheating on him. That doesn't scream good judgment. Maybe not, I said. But I've been patient. I've been strategic. I haven't confronted her. I haven't made a scene. I've been gathering evidence and building a case. That's not the behavior of a man with bad judgment. That's the behavior of a man who knows when to strike. Richard nodded slowly. And when is that? When she least expects it. He poured himself another scotch. Then he poured one for me. It was the first time I'd seen him move with anything other than calculation. I'll have my team draw up the papers. There's one thing I need to know, I said. Why are you doing this? You could partner with anyone. You don't need me. Richard took a slow sip of his scotch. You're right. I don't need you. But I like you and I hate thieves. Derek Vance is both a thief and an idiot. He stole from a company that's 23% owned by me. That makes it personal. So this is revenge for you, too. No, this is business with a side of satisfaction. The best kind of deal. He raised his glass to making thieves poor and honest men rich. I raised mine. We drank. One more thing, I said. When this is over, when Victoria is out and Derek is in prison, what happens then? Then you run the company. You fix it. You make me money. And when you've tripled its value, I'll sell my stake and retire for real and I stay as chairman. If you want it. But I wouldn't blame you if you walked away. This is going to get ugly before it gets clean. I'm not walking away, I said. I built part of that company. I'm not letting it rot. Richard smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen from him all night. Good answer. That's why I picked you. You picked me. I thought I came to you. You did. But I'd already heard about you. I had my people look into you before you even made the call. I don't take meetings with people I haven't vetted. I blinked. So, you already knew about me. I knew you were a man who'd been wronged and hadn't done anything stupid about it yet. That's rare. Most men in your position do something rash. They confront. They threaten. They tipped their hand. You didn't. You waited. You built a case. You came to me with a plan. Not a sob story. I didn't want to be the guy who cried about his cheating wife. I said, and that's exactly why you won. Most people lose because they can't keep their mouths shut. You kept yours shut for a year. That takes discipline. He held out his hand. I shook it. Welcome to the big leagues, Jack. That was it. 10 months of work distilled into a handshake and a scotch. The next 10 months were the most focused of my life. I woke up at 5 every morning. I worked out. I read the financials of every company Oakwood had ever acquired. I studied Richard's deal structures. I learned how he thought, how he negotiated, how he operated. I also kept up my role at Morrison Corporation. I went to meetings. I smiled. I played the part of the supportive husband who didn't know his wife was destroying everything they'd built. It was exhausting, but it was necessary. Victoria got sloppy. The affair became more open. She stopped hiding her phone. She took calls from Derek in front of me. She came home late and didn't bother with excuses anymore. One night she came in at 1:30 a.m. smelling of Derek's cologne and didn't even say hello. She just walked past me to the bedroom and closed the door. I didn't react. I didn't confront. I just watched and I waited. There were moments when I wanted to break. Moments when I wanted to throw the photos in her face and watch her crumble. But I held back because I knew that if I confronted her early, she'd have time to recover. She'd find a way to spin it. She'd make me the bad guy. I needed her to fire me. I needed her to believe I was weak. I needed her to think she'd won. So I played the part, the beautiful husband, the overlooked employee, the man who didn't know what was happening under his own nose. It was the hardest role I've ever played. There were nights I almost broke. One night in particular stands out. Victoria came home at 2:00 a.m. She was drunk. She stumbled into the guest room instead of the master bedroom. She'd confused the doors. She fell onto my bed, reeking of wine and Derek's cologne. Jack, she slurred. You're awake. I was sitting in the dark, wide awake. I'd been holding the PI photos in my hands, looking at them, committing them to memory. Go back to your room. Victoria, I miss you, she said. I miss how things used to be. She reached for me. Her hand touched my arm. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not desire. Nothing. She was a stranger to me. You're drunk. Go to bed. Don't you love me anymore? The question hung in the air. I could have ended it right there. I could have thrown the photos in her face. I could have told her everything. But I didn't because I wasn't ready. The plan wasn't complete. Go to bed. Victoria. She passed out on my bed. I moved to the living room couch. I didn't sleep. I sat there in the dark staring at the wall thinking about every lie she'd told me. Every night she'd come home late. Every time she'd touched him. When I walked into the kitchen the next morning, she was making coffee. She didn't remember coming into my room. She didn't remember anything. Morning, she said, bright, cheerful, like nothing had happened. Morning. She kissed my cheek. I let her. I have late meetings again tonight, she said. Derek and I are working on the Q3 projections. Of course you are. She didn't catch the tone. She never did. Another time I ran into Derek at the office gym. He was on the treadmill, barely sweating, looking smug even while running. He waved at me. Jack, how's the operation side? Keeping things running? Fine. Derek, I was just telling Victoria that you're doing a great job. Really, the supply chain is humming. You should be proud. He was mocking me. We both knew it. That supply chain humming was because I'd rewired half the system after his consultants messed it up. But he was taking credit for identifying the opportunity. Thanks, I said. No problem. We're a team. That's what matters, right? He smiled. That perfect practice smile. I wanted to smash his face into the treadmill. Instead, I smiled back. Right, team. I walked out. I went to my office. I closed the door. I sat there for 10 minutes, breathing. Then I called Frank. I need the timeline moved up. I said, we can't. The share transfer takes time. Sterling's lawyers need to move it up. Jack, what happened? I told him about the gym, about Derek's smile, about how close I came to breaking. Frank listened. Then he said, he's trying to provoke you. He wants you to snap. If you snap, you lose. Victoria fires you for cause. The board sides with her. You get nothing. I know. Then hold. 2 more months. That's all. 2 months and you can tear his world apart. I can do 2 months. I know you can. You've already done 8. I hung up. I went back to work. I buried myself in spreadsheets and vendor contracts. I kept my head down, but I started counting the days. Now the day had come. Tomorrow morning. The boardroom. I closed my notebook. I finished my coffee. I went to bed at 10 p.m. and slept like a dead man. The morning after Victoria fired me, I woke up at 5:30. I showered. I shaved. I put on a navy canali suit that I'd bought 2 weeks earlier for this exact moment. Black shoes polished to a mirror shine. A silver tie clip. The one Victoria bought me for our 4th anniversary. I didn't wear it for sentiment. I wore it because I wanted her to see it. I wanted her to know. I made coffee. I reviewed my notes one more time. Then I drove to Morrison Corporation. The drive took 20 minutes. I listened to jazz on the radio. I didn't rehearse. I didn't need to. I parked in the visitor's lot. I walked through the revolving doors at 8:45. The security guard, a heavy-set man named Paul who'd worked there for 15 years, did a double take. Mr. Morrison, they said HR sent a memo this morning. I know, Paul, I said. I'm just here for a meeting. He hesitated. He looked at his monitor, then back at me. I don't see you on the visitor log. I'm not a visitor, Paul. I'm a shareholder. He scratched his head. Mr. Morrison, I don't want to get in trouble. You won't. Promise. Call the head of security if you want. Tell him Jack Morrison is here for the board meeting. He'll know. Paul picked up the phone. He dialed. He spoke quietly. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw his face change. Surprise. Then something else. Mr. Thompson says it's fine. Paul said, hanging up. Go ahead. I patted his shoulder. Thank you, Paul. I won't forget this. The lobby was busy. Morning rush. Coffee cups. Briefcases. The hum of conversation. Several employees saw me. I saw their faces change. Confusion. Surprise. A few looked away like they'd seen something they weren't supposed to. Young woman from accounting. Her name was Maria. Walked past me and whispered, "Good luck, Mr. Morrison." I glanced at her. "Thank you, Maria." She blinked. Surprised I knew her name. I kept walking. The executive elevator doors opened. Inside was Jessica, Victoria's assistant. She was holding a stack of folders. She dropped them when she saw me. Papers scattered across the floor. "Mr. Morrison, you can't be here." I stepped into the elevator. "I have a board meeting." Jessica. Her eyes went wide. "A what?" "The board meeting 9:00 a.m. in the main conference room. But Ms. Morrison didn't invite me." I said I know I invited myself. Jessica bent down to pick up the papers. Her hands were shaking. "Please, Mr. Morrison, let me call Ms. Morrison first. Let me tell her you're coming. Let me, Jessica." I need you to do something for me. She looked up. What? I need you to stay calm. Don't call anyone. Go to your desk. Sit down. Whatever happens in the next hour, you're going to hear about it. But you're not going to be part of it. I could lose my job. You could. Or you could keep it. But if you call her now, you're choosing sides. And you don't know which side is going to win. She stared at me. The elevator climbed. Second floor. Third for TH. I always liked you, Mr. Morrison. She said quietly. I always liked you, too, Jessica. The doors opened on the 14th floor, the executive suite. I stepped out. Jessica stayed in the elevator. The doors closed behind me. I walked toward the conference room. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. The doors were closed. Through the glass, I could see the board members taking their seats. There were 11 of them. Victoria was at the head of the table wearing a charcoal blazer. Her hair pulled back tight. She looked powerful. She looked in control. Derek stood beside her, leaning in, whispering something in her ear. She nodded at whatever he was saying. She trusted him. She believed in him. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. I pushed the door open. It swung wide and hit the wall with a thud that echoed through the room. Every head turned. Victoria's face cycled through confusion, anger, and something I'd never seen on her before. Pure naked fear. Jack, she said. Her voice was sharp. Security is on its way. No, they're not, I said. I walked to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table. The chairman's chair. I called head of security this morning. Told him to stand down. We had a nice chat. You don't have that authority, Derek said, stepping forward. He held up his hands like he was dealing with a crazy person. Jack, you need to leave. You're making a scene. This is a private board meeting. I turned to him. I looked him dead in the eye. Sit down. Derek. Excuse me. You heard me. Sit down. You can't come in here. And I took a step toward him. He took a step back. His coffee cup clattered as he set it down on the table. I said, sit down. Derek didn't sit, but he stopped moving. His mouth hung open for a second. Then he closed it. His face went red. You've got some nerve, Derek said. He tried to laugh, but it came out wrong. Walking in here like you own the place. You're nothing. You're the husband who got fired because he couldn't keep up. I'm the husband who caught his wife's lover stealing $2 million. I said we can keep going with the insults, but I'd rather let the documents do the talking. You don't have documents. You're bluffing. You've always been a bluffer, Derek, Victoria said. Her voice was unsure. Maybe we should hear him out. Hear him out. He's trying to destroy us. No, I said I'm trying to save the company from you. There's a difference. The board member named Chun spoke up. Mr. Morrison, you said you have documentation. May we see it? I have more than documentation. I have a paper trail that goes all the way to the Cayman Islands. I have bank statements. I have invoices signed by Derek's alias companies. I have emails from Derek to a shell company director that literally say, keep the payments under the radar. Those are lies, Derek said, but his voice cracked. Are they? I opened my briefcase. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is an email from your personal account to Mercury Group on February 14th. Subject line invoice processing. You wrote, split the $340,000 into 3 payments. Use the new Hong Kong account. Don't let the board see the trail. I held it up. Derek's face went white. That's fabricated. You forged that. It's time-stamped, authenticated, and backed by server logs that your own IT department provided. I subpoenaed them 3 months ago. You never even noticed. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Victoria stood up. Everyone, I apologize for this interruption. Jack and I are in the middle of a personal matter. He's confused. He's upset. I'm going to ask him to leave. Victoria, I said, sit down. Excuse me, sit down. Before you make this worse for yourself. I'm the CEO of this company. You don't tell me to sit down. Actually, I said, pulling a folder from my briefcase. You're not the CEO anymore. I placed the folder on the table. The thud of its landing was loud in the silent room. Then I pulled out a second folder. The third. A fourth. The board members watched. No one spoke. No one moved. What is this? Victoria said. Her voice cracked on the last word. This, I said, opening the first folder, is a summary of the share transfer that took place at 800 this morning. Oakwood Partners has transferred its entire controlling stake in Morrison Corp. To a holding company called Addison Group. One of the board members, a gay-haired man named Harrison, who'd been with Morrison Corp. Since before Victoria was born, leaned forward. Addison Group. That's not on the shareholder registry. I reviewed the registry myself yesterday afternoon. It is now, I said. I opened the second folder. This is the certificate of incorporation for Addison Group, signed by the state and notarized this morning. And this, I opened the third folder, is the board resolution appointing me as chairman, effective immediately. It's been reviewed by Morrison Corp's legal counsel. It's binding. Silence. Dead. Total silence. Victoria stared at the documents. Her hands were shaking. She picked up the first page. Read it. Put it down. Picked up another. That's impossible, she said. Oakwood would never. Oakwood's chairman is Richard Sterling, I said. And Richard Sterling and I have been working together for 10 months. Derek laughed. It was a forced hollow sound. You expect us to believe that a man like Richard Sterling would partner with a guy who got fired from his own wife's company? That's ridiculous. Do you know who Richard Sterling is? He's a billionaire. He doesn't work with. He didn't partner with me because of my resume. I said he partnered with me because of yours. What's that supposed to mean? I opened my briefcase again. I pulled out a manila envelope. It was thick, heavy with paper. I tossed it onto the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped in front of Victoria. That, I said, is a complete record of every fraudulent transaction you've made through Mercury Consulting and its 6 shell companies. Total value $42 million over 18 months. Every invoice, every bank transfer, every forged signature. The evidence is overwhelming. Victoria's face went white. She looked at the envelope. She looked at me. She looked at Derek. What is he talking about? She said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Nothing, Derek said quickly. His voice was too fast, too high. He's lying. He's making this up. He's desperate. He's trying to. Am I said. Open the envelope. Victoria, look at the documents. Look at the signature on the first one. It's yours. She opened the envelope. She pulled out the stack of papers. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second, then the third. Her face changed. The color drained completely. Her hands started shaking violently. Papers slipped from her fingers and scattered across the table. These are real, she whispered. Every one of them, I said. She looked at Derek. Her eyes were wide. You told me these were consulting fees. You said Mercury was a logistics partner. You said it was standard industry practice. You made me sign those. Victoria. Calm down, Derek said. He held up his hands in a placating gesture. We can talk about this in private. This isn't the time or place. Calm down. He just showed me documents that prove I signed off on $4.2 million in federal fraud. She stood up so fast her chair slammed into the wall behind her. Do not tell me to calm down, Mess Morrison Harrison said, his voice measured and calm. Is this true? Did you approve these payments? Victoria didn't answer. She was still staring at Derek. Her face twisted between rage and heartbreak. I trusted you, she said. I believed in you. I gave you everything. Answer the question. Victoria, I said. I didn't know, she said. Her voice cracked again. I swear to God, I didn't know. He told me they were legitimate. He said the contracts were standard. He said it was normal. I trusted him. Then you're either complicit or incompetent, I said. Either way, you're not fit to lead this company. That's enough, Derek said. He slammed his hand on the table. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. You can't just walk in here with a bunch of documents. And I can, I said. I just did. And I have more. I pulled out a second envelope. I held it up so everyone could see. This one contains hotel receipts, credit card statements, text message transcripts, and private investigator photographs, all documenting the affair between Victoria Morrison and Derek Vance over the last 8 months. I looked directly at Victoria, including the weekend you spent at the Ritz-Carlton in Naples. You told me you were at a conference in Pittsburgh. I believed you. I was a fool. Victoria sank into her chair. She looked small, empty, broken. The powerful CEO who'd fired me 24 hours ago was gone. In her place was a woman who just watched her entire world collapse in 10 minutes. "We can explain," Victoria said. Her voice was barely audible. "There's nothing to explain," I said. "Mr. Morrison," Chen said. She was studying one of the financial documents. "These payments go back 18 months. Why did you wait so long to bring this forward?" "Because I needed proof that would hold up in court and in front of this board. Accusations without evidence are just noise. I wanted evidence that couldn't be disputed and the personal material." Harrison asked, gesturing at the affair envelope. "Why include that?" "Because it establishes motive. Derek Vance needed Victoria's trust to execute his fraud. The affair was how he got it. The board deserves to understand the full picture." Kowalski spoke up. He'd been quiet until now. "Jack, I've known you for 5 years. You've always struck me as a reasonable man. But this feels calculated." "It is calculated," I said. "Derek Vance calculated that he could steal $4.2 million and no one would notice. Victoria calculated that she could have an affair and I'd be too weak to do anything about it. I calculated that I needed to wait, gather evidence, and strike when they least expected it. One of us was right." Silence. "I've made my decision," Harrison said. He held up his hand. "I'm voting for Jack's resolution." Chen raised hers. "Same." Kowalski looked at Victoria, then at me. He sighed heavily and raised his hand for the company. The rest followed one by one. 11 hands unanimous. She sat there frozen. Her hands were in her lap. Her head was down. She didn't look at anyone. Derek was already backing toward the door. "This is illegal. You don't have the authority. I'll fight this in every court in this country." "You'll do nothing," I said. "Security will escort you both out. The FBI has been notified." The doors opened. 2 security guards stepped in. Paul from the front desk was one of them. He looked at me. I nodded once. He turned to Derek. "Mr. Vance, Ms. Morrison." Paul said, "Please come with us." "This is bullshit," Derek said. He pointed at me, his finger shaking. "You think you've won. You think this is over. It's over for you," I said. "I've been in this industry for 15 years. You piece of—" Derek lunged forward. Paul caught him mid-stride, grabbed his arm, and twisted it behind his back. Derek cried out in pain. His face slammed against the table. "Sir, don't make this difficult," Paul said. Derek was panting. Sweat beat on his forehead. "You're going to regret this, Morrison. I swear to God. Save it for the FBI." Derek thrashed. He kicked a chair. It skidded across the floor and hit the wall. "You think you're clean. You think you're better than me. I know things about you. I've done my research. Research what I said. I don't have secrets. I haven't stolen anything. I haven't lied to anyone. I'm clean. Everyone has secrets. Then share them. I'm listening." Derek's Clear's throat face twisted. He didn't have anything. He was grasping. "You'll slip up. You'll make a mistake. And when you do, I'll be there in prison," I said. "You'll have a lot of time to think about it. 15 years minimum. Maybe more if the feds add charges. You don't know that. You don't know anything. I know you used $340,000 to buy a condo in Miami. I know you transferred another $800,000 through a shell company in the Caymans. I know you forged Victoria's signature 23 times. I know everything." Derek stopped struggling. His face deflated. The fight drained out of him. "How long?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "How long have you known long enough to build a case that will end your career, your marriage, and your freedom?" He looked at me with something close to respect. Or maybe it was fear. Hard to tell. "You played me." "No, you played yourself. I just watched." The second guard took Derek's other arm. They dragged him upright. He was shouting all the way down the hall. "I'll ruin you. You hear me? I have connections at the highest levels. I'll—" The door slammed shut. His voice cut off like someone had flipped a switch. I looked at Victoria. She hadn't moved. She was still sitting, staring at the table like it held the secrets to everything she'd lost. "Victoria," I said, "it's time to go." She looked up. Her eyes were wet. Her mascara was running down her cheeks. "Where am I supposed to go?" I don't care. But you're not staying here. She stood up slowly. She smoothed her blazer. She picked up her purse. She walked to the door. Then she stopped. Did you plan all of this? I planned the business part. I said, I didn't plan for you to fall in love with a thief. That was all you. I didn't love him. Then what was it? She turned to face me. Her face was a mess of tears and ruined makeup. I don't know. Excitement. Tension. Something I wasn't getting from you because I was working. Because I was supporting you. Because I was doing the invisible work that kept this company running while you played CEO. I was holding it together while you were. I needed more, she said, cutting me off. Then you should have asked. I said, instead of burning everything down, instead of betraying the only person who actually had your back. She looked at me, really looked like she was seeing me for the first time in years. You've changed, she said. No, I said you just never paid attention. She walked out. I watched her go. The door closed behind her. I didn't feel triumph. I felt something colder, closer to peace. Like I'd finally set down a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten it was there. The board meeting continued for another 2 hours. I outlined the restructuring plan, the interim management team, the forensic audit. I answered questions. I made promises I intended to keep. Harrison leaned over to me at one point. Thomas is going to hear about this. I know he's not going to be happy. She's his daughter. Maybe not, I said. But he asked me to protect the company. And that's what I'm doing. Harrison nodded slowly. Fair enough. By noon, I had a signed resolution. I was chairman. Victoria was gone. Derek was out. The forensic audit was authorized. The FBI had been contacted. I walked out of the conference room at 12:30. Jessica was at her desk, eyes wide. She'd heard everything. The entire floor had Mr. Morrison. Chairman, there's something you should know. What is it? Ms. Morrison is still in her office. She's been in there since the guards took Mr. Vance. She's asking to speak with you. She won't leave. Tell her I'm busy. She said she won't leave until she speaks with you. She said she'll wait all day if she has to. I thought about it. I didn't know her anything, but I walked to her office. The door was half open. She was sitting on the couch, her blazer off, her makeup ruined. She was clutching a tissue that had long since stopped being useful. She looked up when I entered. You're going to destroy me, she said. I'm not going to destroy you, I said. You did that yourself. I'm just going to protect the company you nearly ruined. He lied to me about everything. The money, the contracts, the shell companies. He said it was all standard practice. I know. Did you know? Before today, before the investigator, I suspected I didn't have proof until Frank found the financials. Frank, your lawyer. Yes. She laughed. It was a broken, hollow sound. I fired you because Derek said you were dead weight. He said you were holding the company back. He said we'd never get investor ready with you in operations. And you believed him. I believed everything he said. She put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. You're just not as smart as you think you are. She looked up. That's cruel. That's honest. There's a difference. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city skyline she'd once commanded. What happens now? The forensic audit runs its course. Derek goes to prison. The company restructures. I rebuild. And me. You sign the divorce papers. You take the settlement. You leave. Where am I supposed to go? Portland. Your sister. Lives there. You've got options. You've thought about everything. You've planned everything for 10 months. I said. She turned around. 10 months. You carried all this for 10 months. You slept next to me. You had dinner with me. You smiled at me. You held my hand. And all that time you were planning to take everything from me. Yes. Why didn't you just confront me? Why didn't you tell me what you knew? Why didn't you give me a chance to? Because confrontation doesn't work with people like you. You don't listen. You don't change. You only understand. Consequences. Maybe I would have changed. Maybe you would have. But I wasn't willing to bet 400 employee jobs on maybe. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, then opened it again. I'm sorry, Jack. You already said that. I mean it. I know you do. But it doesn't change anything. Goodbye, Victoria. I walked out. I didn't look back. The hallway was full of people. Employees who'd heard the shouting. Executives who'd gotten whispered updates. Assistants with wide eyes and phones in their hands. They parted like water when I walked through. "Mr. Morrison, is it true?" Someone asked. "What's happening to the company?" Another voice. "Is the FBI really involved?" I stopped walking. I turned around. About 20 employees were standing there watching me. Some looked scared. Some looked hopeful. A few looked like they were already updating their resumes. "Here's what I can tell you," I said. "Derek Vance is gone. He's been arrested for fraud. Victoria Morrison has been removed as CEO pending an investigation. The company is stable. Your jobs are safe. I'm in charge until we find a permanent solution." A woman from marketing raised her hand. "Did you really plan all this?" I looked at her. "I plan to protect this company. Everything else is just details. But the affair, the money, I'll answer questions when I have answers. Right now, I need to make sure Morrison Corp doesn't collapse. If you want to help, stay at your desk. Do your job. Trust that I'll fix this." A man from the warehouse team called out. "Pete Jackson's son works here. You know, the warehouse manager. Derek fired. Pete said you paid his severance out of your own pocket." The hallway went quiet. "Pete was a good employee." I said. "He didn't deserve to be collateral damage." "And us?" the man asked. "We're not collateral damage. You're the reason I did this. 400 families depend on Morrison Corp to pay their bills. Derek was stealing from all of you, not just from me." I couldn't let that continue. More murmurs. Heads nodding. Someone started clapping. Then someone else. Within 10 seconds, the entire hallway was applauding. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who'd done what had to be done. But I nodded. I thanked them. And I walked to my new office. Victoria's office. I sat in her chair. Her coffee mug was still on the desk. Her family photo was still facing her side. Everything smelled like her perfume. I took the mug to the kitchen. I threw it in the trash. I packed the family photo in a box and put it in the closet. I sat back down. This was my office now. This was my company now. The forensic audit started the next day. I hired Diote to do the work. They had no connection to Morrison Corporation. No bias. Just cold, hard numbers. The numbers weren't pretty. Derek Vance had stolen $4.2 million, not $37 million, as I'd originally estimated. He'd funneled money through 9 shell companies, not 6. He'd forged signatures on 23 different occasions, including Victoria's and Harrison's and 2 other board members. He'd used the money to buy a condo in Miami, a 40-foot boat jewelry, and a stake in a nightclub. I handed it all to the FBI Special Agent Lauren Took. The case. She was young, sharp. She read through the entire file in 20 minutes and said, "This is one of the cleanest paper trails I've ever seen. Your lawyer did good work. Frank's the best. Send him my regards." Derek was arrested at his apartment on a Thursday morning at 6:00 a.m. They caught him in his bathrobe, half asleep. The news cameras were there. His face was all over the evening news. Convicted fraudster. Disgraced executive. I watched the arrest on TV at my apartment. The news chopper footage showed 4 FBI agents surrounding his building. Derek came out in handcuffs, barefoot, still in his robe. He was shouting something at the cameras. The sound was muted on the broadcast, but I could read his lips. "I didn't do anything," the reporter said. Derek Vance, former COO of Morrison Corporation, was taken into custody this morning on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. The charges stem from a scheme that allegedly siphoned over $4 million from the company through a network of shell companies. My phone rang. It was Frank. "Did you see it?" "I'm watching it now. They're moving fast." I talked to Agent Chen. She said the evidence was so clean. They got the warrant in 48 hours. "Good. How do you feel?" I watched the screen. They were shoving Derek into the back of an FBI SUV. His face was pressed against the window. He looked like an animal in a cage. I feel like I watched a man destroy himself in slow motion. I said, "That's growth. Most people would be popping champagne. I'll save the champagne for when the company's back in the black. That's my client always thinking about the bottom line." I hung up. I watched the rest of the news segment. They showed photos of Derek in his prime Armani suits, VIP events, the Miami condo, a boat he'd named the Grifter. The contrast was brutal. One picture, he was shaking hands with a senator at a charity gala. The next, he was being pushed into a police car in his bathrobe. I didn't feel sorry for him, but I understood something in that moment. Derek wasn't a mastermind. He was a gambler who got caught. He'd been playing a game he thought he could win forever. He just didn't know I was playing. 2. His bail was set at $2 million. His lawyer tried to argue it down. The judge denied the motion. Derek sat in jail awaiting trial. Victoria wasn't arrested. The prosecutors decided she was a victim of manipulation. It was the right call. She was guilty of poor judgment, not criminal intent. But her reputation was destroyed. The business press had a field day. CEO caught in affair with embezzling COO. Husband ousted, returns as chairman. Morrison Corporation rocked by $4.2 million fraud scandal. It was a story that sold papers and generated clicks. I didn't read the articles. I didn't need to. I lived it. The morning after Derek's arrest, I held a press conference. I stood at a podium in the Morrison Corp lobby. Cameras from every local news station were pointed at me. Microphones crowded the table. "I'm Jack Morrison," I said. "I'm the interim chairman of Morrison Corporation. I'm here to address the situation directly." A reporter shouted, "Is it true you planned your wife's ouster for months?" "I planned to protect this company from fraud. That's the only plan." "Did you know about the affair before yesterday?" "I'm not going to discuss personal matters. I'm here to talk about the business." "Did you know Derek Vance was stealing?" "I had suspicions. When I had evidence, I brought it to the board." A woman from a business journal raised her hand. "Mr. Morrison, can you guarantee that Morrison Corp will survive this?" I looked directly at her camera. "I can guarantee that I will do everything in my power to make sure it does. We have 400 employees. We have 12 facilities across 5 states. We have customers who depend on us. I will not let Derek Vance's crimes destroy what Thomas Morrison spent 40 years building." "What about Victoria Morrison? Will she face charges?" "That's a question for the FBI. I don't have an answer for you." "How does it feel to be the one who brought down your own wife?" I paused. I looked at the reporter who asked the question. He was young, maybe 25. He'd probably never been betrayed by someone he loved. "Feels like doing the right thing," I said. "And the right thing doesn't always feel good." The press conference made the evening news. Clips of it played for the next 3 days. People stopped me on the street. Some called me a hero. Some called me a villain. I didn't care about either label. But something interesting happened. Other CEOs started reaching out. People I'd never met. They'd heard about Derek's scheme. They wanted to know how I'd caught him. They wanted to know if their companies were vulnerable to the same kind of fraud. I took every call. I gave honest answers. I didn't charge for the advice. It wasn't about money. It was about making sure no one else got caught the way I almost did. One of those calls led to a consulting contract. Then another. Then 3 more. Sterling Morrison Capital was born. Not from a business plan, but from a reputation earned in fire. Thomas Morrison called me 3 days after the board meeting. I was in my new office. His voice was rough. "Jack Thomas, I heard. What happened? Did you hear all of it?" "I heard my daughter was sleeping with a thief and you took her company from her." That's one way to describe it. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing. Was there no other way? Not one that saved the company. I said Derek was stealing. Victoria was either complicit or negligent. I couldn't let both of them destroy everything you built. He was quiet for another long moment. Then he said, "You did the right thing. Thank you. She's my daughter. I love her. But I built that company with my own hands. I won't watch it burn because she made bad choices. I won't let it burn. I know. That's why I'm not angry at you." We hung up. I sat there staring at the phone. I didn't feel relieved. I felt tired. The divorce was handled quietly. Frank sat across from Victoria's lawyer and negotiated. Victoria got the house, the cars, and a cash settlement that was generous given the circumstances. I got the company and my freedom. The divorce was handled quietly. Frank sat across from Victoria's lawyer and negotiated. Victoria got the house, the cars, and a cash settlement that was generous given the circumstances. I got the company and my freedom. She signed without a fight. She didn't have the energy left to fight. But the fallout didn't end with the divorce papers. A week after the signing, I got a call from an old friend. Jack, there's something you need to know. Some of Victoria's old social circle is trying to turn the narrative. They're saying you entrapped her, that you set her up. Let them say it. Could hurt your reputation. My reputation is built on what I've done, not what people say. If someone wants to believe I'm the villain, they'll believe it regardless of what I do. There's a luncheon next week. Victoria's friends are organizing it. They're planning to publicly support her. Good for them. Jack, don't you care at all? I thought about it. No, I don't. Victoria chose her path. I chose mine. The court of public opinion can say whatever it wants. I have a company to run. I didn't go to the luncheon. I didn't respond to any of the gossip. I let it burn out on its own, which it did. Within 3 months, the story had moved on. Victoria's friends drifted away. The media found new scandals to cover. But something interesting happened instead. I started getting letters from people I'd never met. Employees at other companies who'd watched their bosses destroy everything. People who'd been cheated on, cheated out, stepped on. They wrote to say I'd given them hope, that watching me take control of my life made them believe they could do the same. I didn't ask for those letters. I didn't seek them out, but I kept everyone. I put them in a box in my office. On days when the work felt pointless, I'd open the box and read one. It reminded me why I'd done what I did. It wasn't for revenge. It was to prove that the people who take and take and take don't always win. Sometimes the quiet man in the corner, the one they overlooked, the one they thought was weak. Sometimes he's the one holding all the cards. I moved into my small apartment full-time. I didn't buy a new house. I didn't buy new furniture. I kept things minimal, Spartan. It suited the new me. But one thing I did buy, painting. A large canvas, mostly blue, with a single gold streak running through the middle. I hung it above my couch. Every time I looked at it, I remembered the storm I'd walked through and the light at the other side. Claire asked me about the painting once. What does it mean to you? It means you can go through hell and still come out with something beautiful. She looked at the painting, then at me. That's deep for a supply chain guy. I contain multitudes. She laughed. I love that sound. The company restructuring took 6 months. I worked 14-hour days. A year into the restructuring, I ran into someone from my past. I was having lunch at a deli near the office when a man sat down across from me. I looked up. It was Ted Rollins, the former VP of sales. He'd left Morrison Corp a year before the scandal broke. He and Derek had been close. Jack, long time Ted. What brings you here? I work across the street now at Beckman Industries. Saw you through the window and figured I'd say hello. How's Beckman? Good. Solid. Nothing exciting. He picked at his sandwich. I saw what you did with Morrison Corporation. The turnaround. It's impressive. Thank you. I also saw what you did to Derek and Victoria. I didn't respond. Look, he said, I'm not going to pretend I didn't know what Derek was doing. I didn't know the details, but I knew something was off. The way he spent money. The way he talked about the company like it was his personal bank account. Why didn't you say something? Because I didn't have proof. And because he looked down at his sandwich because I was scared Derek had connections. He could have ruined my career. So you stayed quiet. I stayed quiet and I watched you take the hit for it. I took a bite of my sandwich. Chewed. Swallowed. You don't owe me an apology, Ted. You're not the one who stole from the company. I know, but I should have said something. Should have backed you up when you questioned Derek's numbers. Instead, I stayed neutral, and neutrality in the face of wrongdoing is just cowardice with a clean name. I looked at him. He meant it. I could see the guilt in his eyes. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing. I just wanted to say it to your face. I've been carrying it for a year. Then you've said it. You're forgiven. Is that easy? It's not easy, I said, but it's done. Holding grudges is heavier than forgiving. I learned that the hard way. Ted nodded. He stood up, put out his hand. I shook it. If you ever need anything, he said, I owe you. I'll keep that in mind. He walked away. I finished my lunch. I thought about all the people who'd stayed silent while Derek destroyed the company. I didn't blame them. They were scared. They had families. They had mortgages. I learned something from that. Power isn't just about who's right. It's about who's willing to act. Derek and Victoria had power because everyone was too scared to stop them. I took it back by being the one who wasn't scared. 1 year into the restructuring, something else happened. Diana Reyes, the new CEO I'd hired, called me into her office. We got the Q3 numbers back. She said, Morrison Corporation is officially in the black. First time since the scandal. She showed me the spreadsheet. Revenue up 22%. Operating costs down 15%. Employee turnover at an all-time low. Customer satisfaction scores higher than they'd been in 5 years. How did you do it? I asked. I gave you a mandate. You exceeded it. I didn't do anything special. I just stopped making bad decisions. Derek had the company convinced that growth meant burning cash on consultants and pointless acquisitions. I reversed that. We focused on what we were already good at. We fixed our supply chain. We treated our employees with respect. The results followed. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. I stared at the numbers. The company I'd helped build was healthy again. Victoria and Derek were gone. The cancer had been cut out. The patient was recovering. There's something else, Diana said. A reporter from Forbes called. They want to do a profile on the turnaround story. I don't do profiles. I know. I told them you'd decline. But they want to interview me instead about how we stabilize the company after the scandal. That's your call. You're the CEO. I wanted to run it by you first. Diana, you don't need my permission to do press. You're running the company. I'm just the chairman. She smiled. That's why I wanted to run it by you, because you're not the kind of chairman who demands control. You trust the people you hire. That's how business should work. Most chairmen don't think that way. Most chairmen haven't been betrayed by someone they trusted. Teaches you the value of real trust. Diana did the Forbes interview. The article ran 3 months later. It was titled The Quiet Turn: How Morrison Corp Rose from the Ashes. The cover photo showed Diana on the factory floor, hard hat on, talking to a line worker. I was mentioned in 3 paragraphs. That was fine with me. I didn't need the cover. I needed the company to survive. Richard Sterling saw the article and called me. Diana's a star. You picked, well, I know, arrogant, confident. There's a difference. He laughed. There is. You've earned it. I hired a new CEO, a woman named Diana Reyes. She'd turned around 2 manufacturing companies before. She was tough, smart, and she didn't care about the scandals surrounding Morrison Corporation. She cared about results. I gave her a mandate: fix the supply chain, cut the dead weight, find new markets. She did it. Within 8 months, Morrison Corp was profitable again. Within 14 months, our valuation had doubled. Richard Sterling called me one night. You've got a gift, Jack. I've got good people. That's the gift. Knowing who to trust. I didn't tell him that I'd learned that lesson the hardest way possible. But I thought about it, about trust. About how I'd trusted Victoria. About how she'd weaponized that trust. About how I'd never make that mistake again. The trial of Derek Vance started 14 months after the board meeting. I wasn't required to testify, but I showed up for the verdict. The courtroom was packed. Press family. Curious onlookers. Derek sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. He looked nothing like the man who smirked at me in the hallway. He looked old, broken. His hair was grayer. His face was gaunt. He'd lost at least 30 pounds. He didn't look at me, not once. I watched the trial from the 3rd row. The prosecution called 14 witnesses, FBI agents, forensic accountants, a handwriting expert who confirmed the forged signatures, a woman from the Cayman Islands who testified via video about the shell company accounts the defense tried. Derek's lawyer argued that Victoria knew about the payments and authorized them, that Derek was just following orders, that the whole thing was a setup orchestrated by a jealous husband. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Castillo, tore that argument apart. Mr. Vance, she said during cross-examination, you claim MS Morrison authorized the Mercury Group payments. Can you show the jury a single document where she approved those payments? Specifically, I don't have that, Derek said. His voice was flat. You don't have it because it doesn't exist. You forged her signature. You created shell companies. You hid the money. You did all of this without her knowledge. I didn't forge anything. She signed those. Then why did the handwriting expert testify that the signatures were not MS Morrison's? Derek didn't answer. I'll repeat the question. Mr. Vance. I don't know, he said. Maybe the expert made a mistake. The expert has testified in 47 federal cases. She's been certified by 3 different courts. Are you saying she's wrong? I'm saying people make mistakes. Then show us one. Castillo said. One document in this entire case that proves MS Morrison knew what you were doing. Derek's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Derek sat there silent. His face was red. His hands were clenched. I'll take your silence as an admission. Castillo said. No further questions. I watched Derek's face crumble. Not dramatically. Not like in the movies. It was a slow collapse. The kind where a man realizes there are no more doors to walk through. His wife, Diane, sat in the second row, directly behind the defense table. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her eyes were red. She held a tissue in her hand, but she wasn't using it. She was just staring at the back of her husband's head like she was trying to see through it. Their kids weren't there. Good. They didn't need to see this. The jury was out for 6 hours. I waited. In the hallway, Frank sat next to me. We didn't talk much. There was nothing to say. You ever think about what happens after? Frank asked. What do you mean after the verdict? After the sentencing? After all of this is behind you? What does Jack Morrison do with the rest of his life? I don't know. Maybe take a vacation. You've never taken a vacation in the 14 years I've known you. Then maybe a long weekend. Frank laughed. You're impossible. A BOIF came out. The jury has reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. The jury filed in the foreman stood up. On count 1, fraud in the first degree. We find the defendant guilty. On count 2, money laundering. We find the defendant guilty. It went on like that for 10 minutes. Count after count. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 17 counts of fraud. 4 counts of money laundering. 2 counts of tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison. No parole. No chance of early release. Derek didn't react. He just sat there staring at the table. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. He shrugged it off. I watched them take him away in handcuffs. I felt nothing. His wife, Diane, divorced him while he was in prison. She got custody of their 2 kids. She sold the house. She moved to Colorado. I helped her find a job through one of my portfolio companies. She wasn't my friend, but we shared something. We'd both been collateral damage and we'd both survived. She came to see me once after the trial. We met at a Starbucks near my office. You don't have to keep helping me, she said. I know. Then why do you? I thought about it. Because you're not him and because you deserved better. It's not your fault he turned out to be a monster. She smiled. It was a sad smile. So, did you deserve better? I mean, we finished our coffee. We walked out together. She paused at her car and turned back. Should hate you, Diane said, for what you did to Derek. He's the father of my children. No matter what he did, you can hate me. That's your right. But I don't because you gave me a way out. You gave my kids a future without a criminal dragging them down. You did what I couldn't do. You stopped him. You didn't know what he was doing. I said, no, but I should have. I ignored the signs, the new watches, the sudden business trips, the late-night calls he'd take in another room. I didn't want to know. You can't blame yourself for not seeing what someone deliberately hid. Maybe not, but I can do better going forward. She held out her hand. Thank you, Jack, for the job, for the honesty, for giving me a chance to start over. I shook her hand. You earned it. So did you. She got in her car. I got in mine. We drove away in different directions. I never saw her again a month after the trial. I got a call from an old friend. Victoria is in the hospital. Liver problems. She doesn't have insurance. The bills are piling up. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about the woman I'd married. The woman who'd laughed at my jokes. The woman who'd held my hand when her father had his heart scare. The woman who'd looked at me across that desk and told me I was dead. Wait, she'll never ask you for help, the friend said, but I'm asking for her. I sent a check. No note, no return address. Enough to cover the hospital bills and then some. I didn't do it for her. I did it for the man I used to be, the man who'd loved her once. That man would have wanted her to be okay. When I heard she recovered and checked into rehab, I felt nothing. Not pride, not resentment, just the quiet acknowledgement that a chapter was truly closed. I saw Victoria once more before the letter came. It was at a grocery store 8 months after the board meeting. I was buying coffee and eggs. She was in the produce aisle looking at tomatoes. She looked smaller, thinner. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing designer clothes, just jeans and a plain sweater. I almost walked past her, but she looked up and saw me. Jack, Victoria. We stood there, two strangers who used to share a bed. I'm in a program, she said. For everything. Drinking, bad decisions, the whole package. That's good. I'm glad. I work at a shelter now downtown helping women who've been through things. That sounds meaningful. It is. It's the first meaningful thing I've done in years. She looked at me. Her eyes were clear. No mascara running this time. Just tired. Honest eyes. I know you paid my hospital bills, she said. I didn't find out until months later. But I know I didn't confirm or deny it. She asked after everything I did. Why would you help me? Because I promised your father I'd take care of you. And because I'm not the kind of man who watches someone die because they can't afford a doctor. She nodded slowly. You're a better person than I was. I'm not better. I just made different choices. That's what being better means. Jack. She smiled. It was a genuine smile. The first one I'd seen from her in years that wasn't fake or transactional. I should go, she said. My shift starts in 20 minutes. Take care of yourself. Victoria, I'm trying. She walked away. I watched her go. I picked up my coffee and eggs and checked out. I never saw her again after that. A year later, a letter arrived at my office. No return address. Handwritten. Shaky handwriting. I opened it. Jack, I'm dying. Liver cancer. The doctors give me 6 months. I wanted you to know that I spent my last years trying to be better. I went to rehab. I worked at a shelter. I tried to make amends. I don't know if any of it matters, but I tried. Thank you for the hospital. Thank you for not hating me. I'm sorry for everything. I'll always love you. Victoria. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The letter wasn't for me. It was for her. It was her way of closing her own chapter. I closed mine a long time ago. Sterling Morrison Capital became my life's work. Richard Sterling. And I built it from a single investment to a portfolio of 14 companies. We didn't do hostile takeovers. We didn't strip assets. We bought struggling companies, fixed their operations, kept their employees, and sold them stronger than they'd ever been. Our first acquisition was a dyeing tool and dye manufacturer in Ohio called Benson Manufacturing. 200 employees, 40 years of history, on the verge of bankruptcy. Their CEO was a man named Gary Benson, whose grandfather had founded the company. He came to me with tears in his eyes and asked me to save his family's legacy. I spent 3 months inside that company. I walked the factory floor. I talked to every employee. I learned every machine, every process, every bottleneck. Then I restructured the supply chain, renegotiated supplier contracts, and found 3 new revenue streams they'd never explored. 18 months later, Benson Manufacturing was profitable. They had 250 employees. Gary Benson's son joined the company as operations manager. The legacy survived. Gary gave me a plaque at the celebration dinner. It said to Jack Morrison, who saved what mattered. I hung it in my office. It meant more than any magazine cover. After Benson, the deals came faster. A logistics company in Detroit, a food processing plant in Iowa, a specialty chemical manufacturer in Ohio. Each one was different. Each one had problems. Derek's consultants would have optimized into closure. I fixed them instead. Business school started teaching my turnaround method. They called it the Morrison approach. The core idea was simple. Understand the people before you touch the processes. I didn't invent it. I just proved it worked. I still gave speeches, but I stopped talking about the Derek Vance story. It became a footnote. I tell a version if asked, but I'd always redirect to the companies we'd saved. The past was the past. The present was about building. Richard Sterling died 5 years after we started Sterling Morrison Capital. He was 77. He went in. His sleep. Heart attack. Peaceful. His son took over his side of the business and we continued the partnership at Richard's funeral. His son leaned over during the eulogy. Dad said you were the best partner he ever had. He was the best mentor I ever had. I said he also said you had steel balls. His words, not mine. I laughed. It was the first time I'd laughed at a funeral. Richard would have appreciated it. I bought a house in Connecticut. Nothing flashy. A 3-bedroom colonial with a big yard and a stone fireplace. I bought a dog. A golden retriever I named Frank. Every morning I took him for a walk. I made coffee. I sat on my porch and watched the world wake up. I started dating. It was weird at first. I hadn't been on a date in 9 years. I used apps. I went to dinners. I met women who were impressed by my story and women who were horrified by it. Neither type stuck. Then I met Claire. It was at a charity event at the Natural History Museum. I was standing alone near the dinosaur exhibit holding a glass of wine I didn't really want when a woman walked up and stood next to me. "Which one's your favorite?" she asked, nodding at the T-Rex skeleton. "The Triceratops." I said, "Underrated. Everyone loves the T-Rex. But the Triceratops had 3 horns and a frill. That's better defense." She laughed. "That's the nerdiest answer you could have given." I love it. Her name was Claire. She was a high school teacher with a master's in biology. She was there with a friend who dragged her along. She didn't know who I was. She didn't care about Morrison Corp or Derek Vance or any of it. We talked for 2 hours about dinosaurs, about science, about her students, about my dog. She never once asked about my ex-wife or my company or my net worth. When the event ended, she said, "I give you my number, but I don't know if you're a serial killer yet." "I'm not, but I'd say that either way." "Fair point. Give me yours. I'll run a background check." I gave her my business card. She texted me the next morning. "Background check came back clean. Coffee this weekend." I showed Frank the text. He read it and handed my phone back. "She has no idea who you are, does she?" "Not a clue." "Good. Marry her." There's been one text. "Doesn't matter. Someone who likes you for you, not for your story. That's rare. Don't screw it up." I didn't screw it up. We took it slow. Dinners, movies, weekends at her place. She had a cat named Watson. I had a dog named Frank. They hated each other at first, then learned to coexist. It was a good metaphor for our relationship. Claire asked me about Victoria once. We were lying in bed, the windows open, a summer breeze coming through. "What happened with your ex-wife?" "She cheated on me with a man who was stealing from her company. I took the company from her. He went to prison." "That's intense." "It's over now." "Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. "It's over." She didn't ask again. I was grateful for that, but she found out more on her own. 6 months into our relationship, Claire was at a dinner party with her teacher friends. One of them had a husband who worked in finance. The husband recognized my name when Claire mentioned it. "Jack Morrison. The Jack Morrison from Morrison Corporation. That's the one." The husband leaned in. "Your boyfriend is a legend in the business world. What he did, taking down that fraud ring, rebuilding the company from scratch. People write case studies about him." Claire came home that night with a strange look on her face. "You didn't tell me you were a legend." "I'm not a legend. I'm a guy who got cheated on and got even. That's not what the business world says. The business world likes stories. They're simpler than reality." She sat down next to me on the couch. "Can I ask you something? And I want the real answer, not the controlled one. Okay. Are you over her completely or is some part of you still angry?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not the same person I was before. That experience changed me. It made me harder, more careful, less willing to trust. "Do you trust me?" "I'm learning to." That's not a yes. It's the honest answer. She took my hand. "I can work with honest." "Good. Because I can't give you anything else. I don't need anything else." She kissed me. We didn't talk about Victoria again for a long time. But I started to change after that conversation. Not because Claire asked me to, Because I realized I was still holding on to armor I didn't need anymore. The war was over. I'd won. It was time to take the helmet off. Claire and I got married 2 years later. Small ceremony. 30 people. Her family. My dog. Frank the lawyer gave a toast that was funny and heartfelt in equal measure. We had a daughter named her Sarah. She has her mother's eyes and her father's stubbornness. I held her in my arms the night she was born. I looked at her tiny face, her tiny hands, her tiny everything, and I made a promise I would teach her what I'd learned. That the world is hard, that people will disappoint you, that you can't control what they do, but you can control what you do about it. That patience is the sharpest weapon, that planning is armor, that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so good that the people who wronged you become irrelevant. I don't know if Victoria ever learned that lesson. I hope she did. For her sake. Derek is still in prison. He has 8 years left. He'll get out in his 50s. He'll have nothing. No money. No family. No reputation. I don't think about him. He earned his ending. Some nights I sit on my porch and watch the stars. I think about the path that brought me here. The detours. The pain. The betrayal. The victory. I don't feel triumphant. I feel tired. I feel grateful. I feel lucky because I could have stayed angry. I could have let the bitterness consume me. I could have spent my life chasing revenge instead of building something real. But I didn't. I waited. I planned. I struck. And then I moved on. That's the part they don't tell you. The part about moving on. It's the hardest part. It's also the most important today. I'm 48 years old. I run a successful firm. I have a small but real circle of friends. I have a wife who loves me. I have a daughter who calls me daddy. And this morning as I was walking out the door, Claire called after me. You never told me. What did you say to her? That day she fired you. I turned around. I smiled. I told her to ask the chairman. The chairman. She never did. She never figured it out. Figured what out? I buttoned my suit jacket. I adjusted the silver tie clip. The one Victoria bought me for our 4th anniversary. I still wear it. Not for sentiment. For remembrance. Figured out that the chairman was me. It was always me. She just needed to fire me to realize it. Claire laughed. That's terrible. I love it. She kissed me. I walked out the door. I got in my car. I drove to work. And I didn't look back. The fall morning was crisp and golden. Leaves skittered across the driveway. I heard Sarah laughing inside, chasing the dog. Claire was making pancakes. The smell of maple syrup drifted through the open window. I thought about Victoria's letter sitting in my desk drawer at home. I hadn't opened the drawer in months. I didn't need to. I knew what it said. I thought about Derek sitting in a federal prison cell somewhere, counting down the years. I thought about the boardroom, the way the light had come through the windows, the way Victoria's face had crumbled, the way Derek's bravado had vanished when he saw the evidence. And I thought about what I'd said to her. Ask the chairman tomorrow. She never did. She never spoke to Richard Sterling. She never even tried because somewhere deep down, she already knew the answer. The chairman was me. It had always been me. I just needed to show her. And I did. I got in my car. I started the engine. I pulled out of the driveway. But I didn't drive to my office right away. Instead, I drove past Morrison Corporation, the old building, the one where it all started. I slowed down as I passed it. It looked different now. New signage, new security booth, a fresh coat of paint on the exterior. Diana had modernized the lobby. The old Morrison Corp was gone. In its place was something leaner, stronger, better. I kept driving. I thought about Victoria's letter again. Thank you for not hating me. I didn't hate her. I never really did. Hatred would have meant she still had power over me. And she didn't. She'd lost that when I walked into the boardroom. I thought about Derek. 8 more years. He'd get out at 53. He'd have a criminal record. No savings. No family. He'd have the rest of his life to think about the choices he made. I didn't wish him well. I didn't wish him ill. I just didn't think about him at all. I thought about Sarah, my daughter. She was 3 now. She'd started preschool. She'd learned to ride a tricycle. She'd told me the other day, Daddy, I love you more than ice cream. That's the kind of victory that matters. I thought about Claire waking up next to her every morning. The way she laughed at my stupid jokes. The way she held my hand at parent-teacher conferences. The way she looked at me like I was a good man. Because of her, I was becoming one. I thought about the future. New deals, new challenges, new mountains to climb. Sterling Morrison Capital had 3 new acquisitions in the pipeline. I was mentoring a young woman named Priya who reminded me of myself 20 years ago. I was teaching a class at the business school once a semester. I was building a legacy, not one based on revenge, one based on creation. I pulled into the parking lot of my office building. I turned off the engine. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel the same way I had in that parking garage the day Victoria fired me. But this time, I was smiling. I got out of the car. I walked into the building. The security guard nodded at me. "Morning, Mr. Morrison." "Morning, Frank." "Yes." I hired a security guard named Frank. It made me smile every time the elevator doors opened. I stepped in. I pressed the button for the 12th floor. The doors closed, and I didn't look back.